Big story out of Oklahoma where the Muscogee Nation, they now have to abide by a landmark ruling that recognizes African Americans and the descendants who are part of this nation. Attorney Damario Solomon-Simmons has been leading this effort. We, of course, have talked about it several times as well. He joins us right now, of course, co-founder of Justice for Greenwood. So go ahead and tell us what's up with the Creek Freedmen. Walk people through what happened today and how significant this is, Damario.
Well, good to see you, Roland. This is very significant because for the first time in 46 years, Black Creeks, also known as Creek Freedmen, will now have their citizenship rights restored to the Muscogee Creek Nation. This will impact tens of thousands of Black Creeks throughout the nation who will not only receive their birthright and their citizenship rights, but also have opportunities to have tangible benefits, life-sustaining and altering benefits like free health care, child care, education benefits, etc.
Okay, so explain to folks, why would they have free health care, free child benefits? What, as a result of the Muscogee Nation? Explain that.
Sure. Well, the Muscogee Creek Nation was one of the five quote-unquote civilized tribes who in the late 1700s, early 1800s adopted European-style culture, speaking English and having a plantation-style economy. And a part of that was the enslavement of Africans and of their own indigenous Black members. And so when they was moved to Oklahoma in the 1830s and continued to enslave and continue to discriminate against their Black members, they sided with the Confederacy during the Civil War. They lost, obviously the Confederacy lost the war at the time, and so they had to do new treaties. And that treaty of 1866, which was negotiated and signed by 5 individuals, one of them being my four-time great-grandfather, Cal Tom, ended enslavement within the Creek Nation, and it also granted citizenship to all Creeks of African descent. But in 1979, the Creek Nation decided they did not want the Creeks of African descent anymore, and they illegally excluded us through their new constitution. And so we've been fighting that battle ever since. And today, their own Supreme Court affirmed that the Treaty of 1866 guarantees Creeks of African descent, also known as Creek Freedmen, to have full citizenship within the Creek Nation.
For folks who don't know, walk through how long this legal battle has been going on, because they were trying everything to shut y'all down.
Yeah, even when you came down, Roland, you saw it firsthand. Listen, I started working on this in 1999 when I was trying to get my own citizenship. And then when I graduated law school in 2004, this was the first case I took to trial in 2005. And we lost in 2007. We lost again in 2018. We lost in 2019. But we kept hitting it, and we had a victory in 2023 that the Creek Nation appealed. And it's from this appeal that we have finally heard their Supreme Court say, yes, you can win. Because in 2007, the Muscogee Nation Supreme Court ruled against us. So this is an amazing day. It is just, I can't stop smiling. And I just wish my grandmother, Johnny Mae Austin, who died in 2019 at 89 years old, who was a named plaintiff in our case in 2018, she spoke Creek, and she grew up on our Creek allotment. I just wish she was here to witness this.
Explain when you said their Supreme Court. People may not realize that these Native American tribes, they have a separate system than the United States Supreme Court.
Absolutely. Thank you, Roland, for that question. So the Creek Nation is the 4th largest Native American tribe in the nation. It has over 100,000 members or citizens. And so it has a fully functioning government with a principal chief, an executive office. It has a legislative office, which they call the National Council. And then they have a judiciary where they have a district court, just like in the United States. And then they have a Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court in the Muscogee Creek Nation has 7 members. 2 of those members had to recuse for our case. And so 5 members decided it. And I'm happy to report that it was a unanimous decision.
Okay, so they had to recuse themselves. Were they 2 of the ones who were previously involved in the case? So what happened there?
Yeah, the 2 that had to recuse themselves were previously involved in the drafting of the 1979 Constitution that excluded Black Creeks. And so I'm very happy that they did the right thing and recused from this particular case, because this case was about what is supreme. Is the Constitution of the Creek Nation, or is it the supreme law of the land because of the Treaty of 1866? So just for the listeners to understand, under the law, treaties of the United States is second only to the United States Constitution. So that's why we were saying no matter what their constitution, the Creek Nation's constitution stated from 1979, the Treaty of 1866 has never been abrogated or made invalid, and that is what covers and controls in this situation.
Obviously, a huge issue. I want to bring in my panel right now. Joining us right now on our panel is, of course, Rebecca Carruthers, President and CEO, Fair Election Center. Glad to have her on the show. Also, A. Scott Bolden, attorney here in Washington, D.C. Joe Richardson, civil rights attorney out of Los Angeles. Glad to have three of you here. So I guess I'll have the lawyer start. Joe, you start with your question for DeMario.
First of all, DeMario, congratulations. This is an incredible accomplishment, and it is obviously very personal for you for some obvious reasons because of your own history. But tell me this, do you see any possibility with this potentially being precedential in terms of setting a precedent that other folks that believe they belong to tribes, because the point is made that tribes, one of the things that the tribes did a pretty good job of is getting, self-determination, funding, setting up casinos and things like that, where the people that are members do quite well. Have there been any discussions that you had over the years that lead you to believe that perhaps in some other areas where we have brothers and sisters who are descendants of tribes, that this could possibly be a route that they may try to take as well?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Right, definitely. You had the Cherokee Nation, which is the largest Native American nation, almost 500,000 members. They had a similar issue that I worked on. That was resolved in 2017. The Creeks are now. You also have the same issue with the Choctaw. You remember the movie Sinners. We all love the movie Sinners. And at the very beginning of the movie, they had the Choctaw Indians that were actually chasing the vampire. Well, the Choctaw Nation was one of those nations that enslaved Black folks and one of those nations that discriminated against Black folks. And right now, they are doing the same thing that the Creeks have been doing. And so that's an issue that we're looking at. Also within the Seminole Nation. You have Black Seminoles who have been a part of the nation for hundreds and hundreds of years, who are also getting discriminated against. So we're looking at all of those issues, and there may be other nations around the country, and we're happy to talk to people and see if it's something we can help with. It's very specific based upon your lineage. A lot of people say, hey, I got some Indian in me, but you have to be able to document it. And that's the thing about the Black Indians of Oklahoma. We are the most documented Black people in the nation. Because ever since they've been taking our land, starting in the late 1700s, they always create these lists of the citizens. So I can document my lineage back to the late 1700s, going all the way up to me. And so that's what it would take. But we know how to do that research, so it certainly could be a route.
Scott.
Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations on your victory. Although, are you really saying that Indians, the Native Americans, discriminated against Black people, just like white people discriminated against Black people in this country?
No, he didn't say discriminated. He said enslaved.
Enslaved.
Yeah, absolutely.
But a Black man can't catch a break.
Yeah, but go ahead, Scott.
So let me ask you this. So as part of this deal or this ruling, first thing that comes to mind is reparations. Are there any reparations in the mix in this ruling, or is that a subsequent separate lawsuit Black Creek would have to bring?
Yeah, great. That's a great question, and I think it's something that should be thought about. At this particular ruling, this is just about the citizenship aspect of it, and what we're hoping. Our goal, and I'm reaching out to the chief. I'm hoping he can meet with me before I come to Chicago. Scott, I'll see you in Chicago at the NBA conference. I'm hoping I can get to the chief on Friday, and let's have a discussion about, hey, how can we heal the divide? How can we work together, become one family again, and move forward and have that conciliation and be able to deal with some of these issues that even the one you talked about? So those things are all on the table. But first and foremost, we just want to say, can we get our citizenship? Can you recognize us not only as first-class citizens within the nation, but recognize our contribution to the Creek Nation over the last 500 years? See, here's the thing. A lot of people don't realize we were here when Columbus got here. There were Black Creeks here when the European came here. We're well documented going back to the 1500s. And so don't try to erase our contribution. Don't try to erase what we've done. Don't try to erase our heroes and sheroes within the nation. Let's move forward as one people, and let's talk about how we heal. And obviously healing includes some type of reparatory justice.
Rebecca.
So how do you formalize that citizenship then?
So like I said, they have a full functioning government. They have a whole citizenship department. So they have 3 different locations. So in Northeast Oklahoma, they have one by Tulsa. You go, and what you have to show is that you are a direct lineal descendant from an individual that was listed on the 1906 Dawes Rolls. So it's either you are or you're not. You can't just decide, oh, I want to be on this roll. So like my great-grandfather, John W. Simmons, was a newborn in 1898. He's on that Dawes Rolls. And so I go from John W. Simmons to my grandmother, Johnny Mae Simmons, to my dad, Ahmad Shadi, to me. That's my lineage. That's how I can show that I am actually one that should be getting citizenship. Now, I could go all the way back to Cal Tom, who was born in 1810, or I could go all the way back to Moses Perryman, who was born in 1780. So I can do that too.
Wow. Congratulations.
Rebecca.
Thank you.
Hey, Demario, it's good seeing you tonight.
What's up, Rebecca?
I'm listening to your story. So I spent some summers in the 80s in Muscogee Nation visiting my great-grandmother on my dad's side in the township of Summit, Oklahoma. Yes, Summit, Oklahoma. She had, when she passed away, she lived in a 2-room shack, she had an outhouse, didn't have indoor plumbing yet, so there was a pump in her kitchen area, but she finally got electricity. So now I got lots of questions. I'm going to have to call my daddy after the show tonight. How do you go about doing the research proving lineage?
Well, listen, I'm going to help you out. All you have to do, and anyone that's listening that think they may have a connection, the way Rebecca just talked about, you can contact Justice for Greenwood. Go to justiceforgreenwood.org. We have a whole We Are Greenwood program. We have a little form there, and you can say, hey, I think I may be connected to the Black Indians of Oklahoma, and we'll do a little research and see if you pass the prerequisites. And if you do, then we can get you one of our genealogists. We have 5 genealogists within Justice for Greenwood that does this work, and then we have our sister coalition organization, the Muscogee Creek Indian Freedmen Band, and they also do this lineage work for you. So if you have someone on the Dawes Rolls, we can find it.
All right, then. Well, Demario, congratulations. It has been a long battle, and the fight continues. We appreciate it.
And let's say one other thing. Summit, Oklahoma is one of the traditional Black towns of Oklahoma, and reasons there's so many Black towns, including the great Greenwood, of the home of Black Wall Street, was because of the Black Indians had already been here. They had already been free. They already had land. They already had power, and they already had a freedom mind state. So it goes full circle.
Well, certainly enjoy this win because you will have few wins this fall when your Oklahoma Sooners play in the SEC.
That's all right, man. I'll take this win.
And you will have even fewer wins for your Dallas Cowboys. So, right, enjoy this one. But come football season, you will not have a joy. You'll be getting lots of text messages from me on Saturdays and Sundays this fall.
You know what? That may be true, but here's the deal. 43 days ago, Mayor Nichols announced the reparatory justice for Greenwood, and today we got justice for Black Creeks. Hey, I'm good for the rest of the year, dog.
Yeah, because you know y'all going to be losing. All right, Demario, we appreciate it. And you're an Omega. You 0 for 3. All right. You 0 for 3. I mean, like, you just keep taking L's.
All right, I want to go to this next story here. Muscogee Nation Court rules descendants of enslaved people are entitled to citizenship. Okay, this is a significant development. I've been talking about this for years. One of my teachers, Dr. Claude Anderson, was fighting for this for a number of years as well. But Attorney Demario Solomon Simmons, who is Creek Indian, as well as a team that he's working with, have been able to get this accomplished. So ABC News has this piece. He was also on Roland Martin Unfiltered. We're going to go to that clip here in just a minute. Muscogee Nation Court rules descendants of enslaved people are entitled to citizenship. The Muscogee Supreme Court has ruled in favor of 2 descendants of former slaves held by the tribe. So this gets into understanding a lot of history as well. And unfortunately, a lot of our people, a lot of Americans in general, but especially African Americans, unfortunately, a lot of us don't understand history to even be able to take advantage of something like this. The Muscogee Nation Supreme Court ruled Wednesday that 2 descendants of people once enslaved by the tribe are entitled to tribal citizenship. Now, some people are surprised to find out that you had some Native Americans, not all Native American nations, but some Native American nations owned enslaved African people. The Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, Cherokee, and Seminole Indians are known as what are known as the 5 civilized tribes of Native Americans, because they took on the ways of Europeans, of the white man. They learned English. They owned slaves. They started farming. They adopted ways of Europeans. So they were known as the 5 civilized tribes of Native Americans. Now, I'm not saying all 560 some odd tribal nations of Native Americans own slaves. No, I'm not saying that. But these were the 5 who were the most involved in it. Okay, not the only ones, but these were the 5 nations most involved in it. Let's go back to this piece here. All right, so the Muscogee Nation Supreme Court ruled Wednesday, and that was Wednesday, July 23rd, 2025, that 2 descendants of people once enslaved by the tribe are entitled to tribal citizenship. The court found that the tribal nation's citizenship board violated an 1866 treaty when it denied the applications of Rhonda Grayson and Jeffrey Kennedy in 2019 because they could not identify a lineal descendant of the tribe, because they could not identify a lineal descendant of the tribe. Okay. Now, let me just pause it right here, because to understand this, you have to understand history. And this is why African-American history is so important. This is why history is so important. And a people's history and culture teaches them how to deal with the problems of the past. How a people's history and culture teaches them how to deal with the problems of the past in the present and the future to meet the needs of the community. It's important for everyone to understand African-American history, because largely the way you treat a people is based upon what you have been taught about a people. What you've been taught about a people is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about a people. So if people have not been taught about the accomplishments and achievements of African Americans, what we have contributed to this country, who we are, and especially our history prior to slavery, then they are more susceptible to believe and act upon stereotypes that are promoted by a white-controlled media, largely stereotypes that negatively depict African Americans. Okay, so Americans in general are ignorant of history. African Americans in general are ignorant of history as well. And then when you try to get policies put in place to address historical structural inequities, a lot of times the lawmakers that you're dealing with are ignorant of your history. So many of them don't even understand that they don't understand. This is why history is so important. This is one of the reasons why history is so important. Okay, Now, this history ties into the origins of Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in the Greenwood district in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Why is that? Because the Indian Removal Act of 1830, signed into law by President Andrew Jackson, this moved the Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, Cherokee, and Seminole Indians off of their land in southeastern United States, the Alabama, Georgia, all that area. They're pushed out west over 1,000 miles in what's known as the Trail of Tears. They all go into Oklahoma. Tulsa, Oklahoma was founded by Creek Indians around 1834. When they go into Oklahoma, they take their African slaves with them. Okay. And about 1/3 of the people on what's known as the Trail of Tears, about 1/3 of the people on the Trail of Tears were African people. Most of them slaves. Some of them are, sometimes people refer to them as servants, but they were slaves of those Native American nations. The word Tulsa comes from the Creek Indian word Tallahassee. And if you read Hannibal B. Smith's book on Black Wall Street, he breaks this down in it. I read his book, Hannibal B. Johnson. This is not Hannibal B. Smith. Hannibal B. Johnson, this book right here. Black Wall Street from Riot to Renaissance in Tulsa's historic Greenwood district. This is one of the best books dealing with the history of getting deep into the history and the origins of Tulsa, Oklahoma. So a lot of the early African-American landowners in Tulsa, Oklahoma got land from the Black Freedmen Indian Treaties of 1866. We have a history of getting benefits from these treaties, but many of our ancestors were pushed out of these treaties because the 5 civilized tribes of Native Americans conspired with the United States government about 1941 to redefine what a Native American is. And they stated that you have to have 1/4 or 1 quantum Native American blood. So a lot of our ancestors were pushed out of these treaties. I'm going to go back to this article in a minute. It's important to understand this background history. This is what I've been talking about. Okay. Some of you all have seen this article here that I've referenced. And when we had the 100th anniversary or commemoration of the Black Wall Street race massacre in 2021, and news media from all over the country was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, a lot of this history started coming out, but a lot of people really didn't understand it and really understand how to put all of this, all of the pieces together. So they're hearing Creek Indian. I saw some interviews in mainstream media, and Roland Martin was down there also in Tulsa doing interviews. I saw some interviews with some people who were Black Creek Indians, and this history started coming out, right? Okay, now let's look at this article here. This is from history.com, the official website of the History Channel. 9 entrepreneurs who helped build Tulsa's Black Wall Street. Okay. See, this is why you have an attack on African-American history, because you have to understand history, economics, law, and politics. History, economics, law, and politics. All this is connected. Before the Tulsa Race Massacre, the city's African-American district thrived as a community of business leaders and visionaries. This is by Alexis Clark. Excellent article. But here's what I want to focus on right here. Number one, let's stop this video. African Americans and land ownership in Oklahoma. Before, let's zoom in on this because this is the history that they don't want people to know. Okay. Before the Greenwood District was established, African Americans came to Oklahoma in the mid-19th century as slaves of the 5 civilized tribes. Okay. The term used for the Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Creek, and Seminole tribes who were forced from their lands in the southeast part of the United States of the country, resettling in Oklahoma, then known as Indian Territory. After the Civil War, under the terms of the treaties of 1866, everybody listen to me. Now, all these goddamn people out here talking about doing a goddamn study, and none of them are talking about this. Our ancestors were actually getting treaties, getting land, getting membership in Native American nations, okay, getting all of the benefits. While people are still trying to get HR 40 passed to do a study. Damn near none of them are talking about this. After the Civil War, under the terms of the treaties of 1866, these African Americans were emancipated, with some integrating into the tribes, a relationship that would later provide freedmen with their own land. While people still keep talking about a damn study. Quote, now this is Hannibal B. Johnson, one of the top historians on the history of Oklahoma and Black Wall Street. Hannibal B. Johnson said the relative wealth of some Black folks in Oklahoma comes in part through their connection to the tribes and their land ownership. Says Hannibal B. Johnson, historian and author of Black Wall Street 100. That's the second book that was dealing with the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa Race Massacre. And author of Black Wall Street 100, an American city grapples with this historical racial trauma. The Dawes Act, you got to understand history. The Dawes Allotment Act of 1887 authorized the government to divide tribal lands into allotments for individual Native Americans. This is the Dawes Rolls, the Dawes Allotment Act. This is how you get the term $5 Indian. All of this history is connected. This is why people keep playing games with us. This is why they are attacking African American history, to keep you ignorant so they can keep playing games in your face. So at the very same time that Project 2025, Donald Trump, the Heritage Foundation, conservatives, along with Black MAGA, along with some Black social media disinformation agents who continue to lie to Black people, at the very same time that they're attacking African American history, suppressing the history, they keep going back into the history and using laws from the same period of time that they are suppressing the teaching of the history of. So 1798, the Insurrection Act of 1798, Donald Trump wants to implement the Insurrection Act. You have the Comstock Act of 1873, named after Anthony Comstock, that could actually ban contraceptives and the mailing of contraceptives, okay? Criminalize that. You have the attack on the 14th Amendment of 1868, which was primarily, not exclusively, not only, but primarily for African Americans, for former slaves and their descendants, to give them citizenship rights, okay? You have that being attacked and used against us. All right. So that was used against us when it came to affirmative action in college admissions. They said it violated Section 1, the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment of 1868. You have the Civil Rights Act of 1866, the same year as the Black Freedmen Indian Treaties. The Civil Rights Act of 1866, which was created to passed by Congress, signed into law by the president. I think that was it was Johnson. He didn't sign it. I think that was I think they had a super majority. They overrode his veto. The Civil Rights Act of 1866 formed the foundation of the 14th Amendment of 1868. And this was designed to give African Americans the right to negotiate labor contracts and enter into contracts. That's the Civil Rights Act of 1866. Well, that was used to attack the Fearless Fund, the African American female entrepreneurs that created the fund to give grants and things like this for women of color entrepreneurs. When conservative activist Ed Bloom, after he destroyed affirmative action at college admissions, he then went after the Fearless Fund and sued them based upon a violation of the Civil Rights Act of 1866, saying that they were discriminating against white entrepreneurs. But the Civil Rights Act of 1866 was for Black people. So at the same time, when they try to suppress the teaching of this history, they're going back into this history and using laws from the same period of time, many of the laws designed for African Americans, they're now using those laws to attack us. And people are sitting there dumbfounded, still talking about trying to get a study done for reparations. Who the hell are you going to get to pass that? And then how are you going to protect against legal lawsuits when they use the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment of 1868, and it goes to Donald Trump's 6-3 conservative Supreme Court that's already ruled against us? But almost none of those people are talking about this right here. The Black Freedmen Indian Treaties of 1866. I've been breaking this down for years. I've talked about Demario Solomon Simmons on my show going back a few years ago because he was working with Maxine Waters under the Biden-Harris administration trying to get this enforced. And he was able to do it through the Muscogee Creek Indian Supreme Court. I got to get his background history because I see so many people putting this nonsense out here talking about reparations. And I said, this is low hanging fruit right here because we have a history of getting benefits from these treaties. And most people don't understand this history. Now, this is from the History Channel. The History Channel has this information. The Dawes Act of 1887 authorized the government to divide tribal territories into allotments for individual Native Americans, which included Black members, as word spread that Indian Territory was a safe place for African Americans to settle. Between 1865 and 1920, more than 50 Black townships were founded in Oklahoma. So when the Tulsa Race Massacre happens, May 31st and June 1st, 1921, did you know that we rebuilt Black Wall Street? Did you know that we rebuilt Black Wall Street? Because a lot of people talk about it was destroyed. But when you read this book by Hannibal B. Johnson, From Riot to Renaissance in Tulsa's Historic Greenwood District, From Riot to Renaissance, he talks about it also being rebuilt. By 1926, there was about 240 thriving businesses. When Dr. W.B. Du Bois visits in 1926, he's marveled at how they have rebuilt. They got help from some of those 50 surrounding Black townships. We rebuilt it with our own dollars. We did not get help from the government to rebuild it. So how is it? Because I hear a lot of African Americans talk about we had this, we had that, and white people destroyed it. And it seems like they want to talk about more about white people destroying what we had as opposed to the fact that we rebuilt it a second time. And 99% of those people don't talk about the Black Freedmen Indian Treaties of 1866 and how that played a part in us acquiring land. These treaties are still being enforced for the 5 civilized tribes of Native Americans. This is why you have to understand law. This is why when I talk about the acronym HELP, history, economics, law, and politics. Politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. Okay, so read this article here. Excellent article. I've talked about a number of times on my show. It's originally from May 14th, 2021. Last updated May 28th, 2025. By this sister here, Alexis Clark, for History.com, official website of the History Channel. 9 entrepreneurs who helped build Tulsa's Black Wall Street. I want to go back to the article here from abcnews.com. Muscogee Nation court rules descendants of enslaved people are entitled to citizenship. Also, I'm going to go to this piece. I'm going to show you some slides from a presentation I did in 2022, talking about this also, talking about the Black Freedmen Indian Treaties. All right, let me go to, where is that? Hold on, let me pull back this article back up just a second here. The Oklahoman.com in Oklahoma, their news publication, they had a story about this also. All right, let's go back to this. Okay, Muscogee Nation court rules descendants of enslaved people are entitled to citizenship. Okay, talked about the Dawes Allotment Act of 1887. So that was redistributing 138 million acres of land. 2/3 of it was, most of it was supposed to go to African Americans and Native Americans. 2/3 went to white people. When white people found out that this land was being given away, you had to anglicize your name. You had to put your name on the Dawes rolls and anglicize your name, change your name to a European name to get it. So a lot of white people paid $5 to have their names added to the Dawes rolls and get free land, get those benefits. That's where the term $5 Indian comes from. The Muscogee Nation is one of 5 tribes in Oklahoma that once practiced slavery. And in that 1866 treaty with the U.S. government, the tribe both abolished it and granted citizenship to formerly enslaved people. But in 1979, the tribal nation adopted a constitution that restricted membership to the descendants of people listed as Muscogee Creek Indians by blood. On the Dawes rolls, a census of members of the 5 tribes created around 1900. Goes back to 1887, the Dawes rolls. Okay, so read the rest of this article here. They talk about Rhonda Grayson. Okay, read the rest of this article from abcnews.com. Now, back in November 2022, I did a virtual presentation for the Midwest Building Decarbonization Coalition, their second annual virtual equity summit. And I'm going to go to this slide because I was on a panel with African Americans and a couple of Native Americans. I think it's about 6 or 7 of us in total. And we were talking about reparative justice, reparations. And Native Americans were talking about their movement to take to get some of their land back, things of this nature. And what I noticed was Native Americans were talking about treaties. African Americans were talking about reparations and getting a study done. None of them were talking about the Black Freedmen Indian Treaties, because that's something I was talking about. This article, this is one of these are. I'm going to show you some of the slides from the presentation I did in 2022. This article is from the New York Times, September 8th, 2020. Black, Native American, and fighting for recognition in Indian country. Black, Native American, and fighting for recognition in Indian country. Enslaved African people were also driven west along the Trail of Tears. After a historic Supreme Court ruling, their descendants are fighting to be counted as tribal members. Ron Graham's ancestors, are known as Creek Freedmen. These are the former slaves, Creek Freedmen, or Black Freedmen. You hear that term also. They were among the thousands of African Americans who were once enslaved by tribal members in the South and who migrated to Oklahoma when the tribes were forced off their homelands and marched west in the 1830s. That's the Trail of Tears. In treaties signed after the Civil War is 1861 to 1865, they won freedom and were promised tribal citizenship and an equal stake in the tribe's lands and fortunes. But what followed were broken promises, exclusions, and painful fights over whether tens of thousands of their descendants should now be recognized as tribal members. Some of the descendants have won lawsuits seeking inclusion in the Cherokee Nation. That goes back to some have won lawsuits. And then also in 2021, the Black Freedmen won a big lawsuit in the Cherokee Nation to get their full citizenship back. I think that was 2021. Some gained nominal citizenship as Seminoles, but said they could not access tribal services. Others, like Ron Graham, have nothing. But now a landmark Supreme Court decision for tribal sovereignty has breathed new life into their fight. In July 2020, the Supreme Court recognized a huge portion of eastern Oklahoma as reservation land under the terms of an 1866 treaty. The same treaty also guaranteed that freed slaves and their descendants would, quote, have and enjoy all the rights and privileges of native citizens, end quote. Have and enjoy all the rights and privileges of native citizens. To groups of their descendants, the logic was simple. If the United States still had to honor treaty promises it made to tribal nations, then tribal nations had to keep their word to the descendants of those formerly enslaved by the tribes. So they talk about Marilyn Vann. She said, we're making noise. She's a Cherokee citizen and president of the Descendants of Freedmen of the 5 civilized tribes. Marilyn Vann estimated that there was a diaspora of some 160,000 descendants of those formerly enslaved by the tribes, many of them living in Oklahoma. There are groups representing descendants from each of the 5 tribes who meet to share sepia photographs of ancestors, compare genealogical records, and plan protests. Now, as they file lawsuits in federal and tribal courts, they say they are fighting for tribal benefits, including access to jobs, health care, and tribal clinics and hospitals, housing, scholarship funds for their children, and the right to vote in tribal elections. Scholarship funds, so that deals with free college tuition for many of them, free college tuition. But also for something more fundamental, my identity, Miss Marilyn Van said, okay, or Mr. Graham said, here, Mr. Graham. Okay, read this article here from, this one is from the Washington, is this Washington Post or New York Times? There was one from, okay, Black Native American and Fighting for Recognition in Indian Country. That's New York Times, September 8th, 2020. Then there's one from the Washington Post, Black Native American, it's either Washington Post or New York Times. Check that out. The freedmen were granted tribal citizenship in some cases and equal interest in the soil and national funds of the tribe in the treaties that Oklahoma's tribes signed with the federal government after the Civil War, in which the tribes were forced to cede huge portions of their land to the government. Now, thegrio.com has an article where Representative Maxine Waters tells thegrio.com that the Cherokee had 2,511 slaves, 15% of the total population. She talks about how many the Choctaw had, 2,349 slaves, etc. And this was because DeMario Solomon Simmons was working with Maxine Waters, trying to get through Congress, U.S. Congress, things like this. He's since gone a different direction and gone to the Muscogee Creek Indian Supreme Court. Okay. And then also in that same presentation I did for the Midwest Decarbonization Environmental Justice Organization, I talked about this information here and some of the origins of African Americans in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Okay. From that article, 9 entrepreneurs who helped build Tulsa's Black Wall Street, from history.com, May 14th, 2021. Okay. So I was on the panel talking about enforcing these treaties for African Americans. Everybody else was talking about getting the study done. All the other African Americans on the panel talking about getting the study done. I was talking about enforcing these treaties because we already had a history of getting benefits from those treaties. Now, yes, this doesn't apply to all African Americans, but the ones this applies to can help others in their family, can help others start. That's low hanging fruit right there. Now, how many people are familiar? So let me, 2 quick things I want to show you. Then we're going to go to the next topic because we're running out of time. And like I said, it's been 3, I haven't broadcasted live Sunday night since May, when I had Professor Kaba Kamene on. And we were dealing with him speaking in Detroit for African Liberation Day. Okay, there was a article from SmithsonianMag.com, Smithsonian Magazine, official magazine of the Smithsonian Institute. How Native American slaveholders complicate the Trail of Tears narrative. I've talked about this article before on the show also. Okay, how do y'all like this type of information? Give us a thumbs up, give us a heart, give us a... Be sure to register for my new history class that starts up Saturday, August 2nd, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. African Empires, the Moors, and the transatlantic slave trade, 5000 BC to 1800 AD. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com to register for that. Okay, let's look at this here. How Native American slaveholders complicate the Trail of Tears narrative. The new exhibition, Americans, at the National Museum of the American Indian prompts a deeper dive for historic truths. This is by Ryan P. Smith, March 6, 2018. Now, this house here, or mansion, Choctaw Chief Greenwood LaFleur had 15,000 acres of Mississippi land. Above is his Mississippi home, Malmaison, and he owned 400 enslaved Africans as well. Okay, he was a Choctaw chief. So they talk about, when you think of the Trail of Tears, you likely imagine a long procession of suffering Cherokee Indians forced westward by a villainous Andrew Jackson, etc. But they go on to say what you probably don't picture are Cherokee slaveholders, foremost among them Cherokee Chief John Ross. What you probably don't picture are the numerous African-American slaves the Cherokee owned. Okay? The numerous African-American slaves the Cherokee owned. Let me close this ad out. Who made the brutal march themselves, or else were shipped en masse to what is now Oklahoma aboard cramped boats by their wealthy Indian masters. Now, I'm not saying all Native American nations owned enslaved Africans, okay, but the 5 civilized tribes definitely did. Oklahoma aboard cramped boats by their wealthy Indian masters. And what you may not know is that the federal policy of Indian removal, which ranged far beyond the Trail of Tears and the Cherokee, was not simply the vindictive scheme of Andrew Jackson, President Andrew Jackson, but rather a popularly endorsed, congressionally sanctioned campaign spanning the administrations of 9 separate presidents. Okay, so about a third of, when you study this history, about a third of the people on the Trail of Tears were African people. All right, once again, they talk about the 5 civilized tribes of Native Americans. Okay, so read this article from SmithsonianMag.com, Smithsonian Institute, How Native American Slaveholders Complicate the Trail of Tears Narrative. How Native American Slaveholders Complicate the Trail of Tears Narrative. All right, now, if you like this type of information, be sure to register for my new online history class that starts up Saturday, August 2nd, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. African Empires, the Moors, and the Transatlantic Slave Trade, 5000 BC to 1800 AD. It's a 10-week online class. This is a very visual class. We do a PowerPoint presentation. I have a PowerPoint presentation. The video clips that I show, there are 15 books that we use in the class that we reference. You don't have to buy any of the books because I show you the clips. I show you the screenshots right on the screen. So you don't have to buy any of the books, okay, if you don't want to. There are excerpts of interviews that I've done with some of our scholars that we show in class also. And this content is PG-13, so you can use it with your children. So we deal with thousands of years of history, and also what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade. And one of the things we look at are African empires. So whether it's Kush, whether it's Nubia, whether it's Axum, Merowe, whether it's Great Zimbabwe, Carthage, and the Carthaginians, and Hannibal Barca. We go throughout history and we look at these African empires, okay? And then we also deal with the history of the Moors, going into Europe, taking the teachings of the Nile Valley region of Africa. We deal with ancient Kemet also. taking the teachings from the Nile Valley region of Africa, taking that into Europe. This is what brings Europe out of the Dark Ages. And then we deal with the transatlantic slave trade, how that came about, and the dispersing of African people, but also how we fought against the transatlantic slave trade every step of the way. Click right here to register here also, and it takes you here. So the class is on sale, $80. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it anytime. And you can email me right through the website. Also at the top of the page, contact the African History Network. But you'll get 5 of my lectures in digital download format. You get 5 of my lectures free as well. So you can register right now for that. We have the link here in the thread of the broadcast. It's also on my, also go to my website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. It's right on the home page. Great African empires, the Moors, and the transatlantic slave trade, 5000 BC to 1800 AD. Okay, let's continue here. You can also support us through Cash App and PayPal, $ the AHN show through Cash App, and through PayPal, paypal.me / the AHN show. We have that information